of the day, like I always say to anyone that comes to fix my wheelchair, and they say, "Oh, you're giving out again." But I always say, "You have to remember," I said, "when you fix our wheelchairs, whether it's a manual one or a powered one, that's our legs, that's our mobility, that's how we get it, that's how we get out and about."
As part of our wheelchair repair project, we spoke with Anne, who shares her journey as a wheelchair user. From managing repairs and maintenance to her first hand experiences with accessibility in the community.
If if my wheelchair breaks down, then especially my powered wheelchair, then I start to panic.
In this part, Anne paints a clear picture of her experiences of accessibility in the community. Uneven pavements and drivers parking on footpaths often narrow the routes she has. Crossing the road is frightening because people don't always see her, turning short errands into draining, stressful ordeals. It's our aim while doing this project to bring awareness to the realities of being a wheelchair user and how these accessibility issues can damage wheelchairs over time. It's not just inconvenience, it's a loss of independence and energy.
Hi, my name is Anne, and um, I live. I've been living in Raheny for the last 30 years. I work 2 days a week, and I use my power chair to get around. And I have two chairs, so I have my power chair and my manual. But I call my power chair my Rolls Royce, and my manual is my Mini. And without especially my power chair, my life would be very different. I wouldn't be able to go out and about, and access to me is very important. I love my independence, and like, to me, access is such a broad word, and sometimes it's good and other times it's not, because sometimes the access to paths, they're 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 so bad and they're so uneven, and like when you're on your own, I find, and if you, and it's when you're on your own, sometimes I can feel very vulnerable because I feel a bit unsafe, and I don't like it. Sometimes I hate crossing roads because the 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 footpaths can be quite broken, and they're a little bit uneasy and a bit unsafe, and where sometimes where people park their cars, they're either too close together, and if the wheel, depending on how wide the wheelchair is, the wheelchair can't go through, and it's just sometimes when it makes me nervous because, like, and then when I was crossing the footpath there, because you're so far out or so far back, if the car is coming down the side road, it can't see you, and I'm always kind of afraid. Like sometimes when I do that, my heart is in my mouth a little bit. And every Friday morning, trying to be on the footpath when all the bins are out, it makes it very difficult. Yeah. As you can see from the video, these two cars, they're blocking the footpath. So, and like when you're, and because I suppose being a wheelchair user, I suppose when I go out, I'm always kind of looking for a dip in the footpath, so because I can't get up the step. So these two cars are blocking it. At the footpath looks okay, but there is parts of the footpath would are a bit uneven, and it does damage the tires underneath, and it makes the ground very uneven. And when I'm in the chair, I feel a bit unsafe because when you're going down, the ground isn't even. So you've got one wheel going down first, and then the other one, rather than them going down both together. As you can see, sometimes the cars, they come out too far on their footpath, so they don't always leave enough enough room for the wheelchair to get by. So, um, frustrating is one word I would use, but it's also very tiring because if you're blocked off in one way, then you have to go around another way, and especially when you're out and about, if you have to go out on the if you have to come off the footpath to go out on the road, my heart just be in my mouth, and like uh, I'd be so glad to get home sometimes because you're thinking 10 steps ahead. Not only are you looking at footpaths and how people park, but sometimes people they do things without even thinking about what they where they park or how it can affect somebody else. I work 2 days a week, and I have to be honest, without my girls coming in the morning, I would be lost. And what I mean by that is my carers. So they come in the morning and I'd have a shower, get ready for work, and go out the door. And without them, I think my life would be very, very different. And I suppose they sort of help me to keep as independent as I can. And um, then I go down to Raheny to get the bus, and most of the time the buses are great, but sometimes the ramps always just the ramps always don't work. And another thing that sometimes which is surprises me is when I get on the bus, and if there's a lot of people on the bus, you kind of nearly have to ask them to move because sometimes in the morning people are wearing their headsets and they're not aware of other people on the bus. Do you know? And I feel like when I have to ask them to move, I feel like then I'm sticking out, whereas really in reality I want to make myself small. Sometimes now it has happened when the ramp is going down and the chair is going up the ramp. Like, maybe I should explain, if the ramp is down but the gradient on the ramp is too high, and what I mean by that is the ramp is too steep, so when you go up in the chair, you kind of have to go really fast. But then I went so fast one time just to get off the ramp that I kind of nearly broke one of the foot plates.
In part 2, Anne describes her experience with wheelchair repair, the routines she uses to protect the electrics from water damage, the DIY fixes she wishes she'd known sooner, and the stress of finding urgent repair when a breakdown leaves her stranded. She explains that repair services are often slow unless treated as emergencies and can be costly, and offers practical suggestions to make repairs more accessible to other wheelchair users. Repairs aren't just maintenance, they're essential for keeping her mobile, safe, and independent.
But I damaged my chair one day because I was really tired and it was raining, and I thought I had no hat to cover the electrics. And you might think it's a bit daft, but I always bring a hat in case it rains, because if you don't cover the electrics, the if it gets so wet, the chair won't will actually stop working. And I that happened to me twice. So people look at me and say, why do you always bring a hat? And that's why. So if I was out and it started raining and there was nobody behind me to get the cape out of my bag, then I'd have a hat to keep the electrics dry, because if the electrics get wet, the chair will just stop working. But I remember talking to him and I says, how much is it? And he said, just for not for this bit, but for this bit, you're talking because the electrics and adding it and everything. He said you're talking the best part of nearly a grand. So, and that happened to me twice. So if you that's why I put the cap on the so to stop it from getting wet. Well, I remember when that happened, they came out straight away because it was classed as emergency, and I was actually out. I wasn't at home, so I had no choice. They had to come out, but as we know, it doesn't always work like that, So I would love to be able to do some repairs myself, because like when you're on your own and your chair breaks down, like you're really depending on the kindness of strangers to come to help you, to like, and I'd love to be a little bit more confident about even doing doing small repairs, do you know but I work as a receptionist for an organization that looks after people with disability, and the amount of calls I would get with people asking maybe to donate their chair, or because they don't need it anymore, but unfortunately we're not in a position to take them. And I think that's an awful shame, because I I think with, like, there are people who could use the wheelchair, and maybe financially they wouldn't be able to maybe buy their own, and at least it would get somebody out of a sticky situation, because like it's a shame, because people might only have them for a few weeks, and maybe their family member passed away. Like, we would get that too, especially with kind of stair lifts, and like we're not able to take them. And I think it's an awful shame, because people have spent so much money on it, and then they're looking to donate or maybe get some of the money back, and we're not able to take them. And we also receive calls on getting, people would ring up on how to get their wheelchair fixed. But I have to be honest, those calls get to me, because I know myself as a wheelchair user. If I didn't have my power chair, I wouldn't be able to go out. And no, you'd be stuck in the house looking at four walls, and like it kind of it would do an awful lot to your self confidence and everything. And like at the end of the day, like I always say to anyone that comes to fix my wheelchair, and they say, "Oh, you're giving out again." But I always say, you have to remember, I said, when you fix our wheelchairs, whether it's a manual one or a powered one, that's our legs, that's our mobility, that's how we get it, that's how we get out and about. The way at the moment everybody's talking about recycling. Well, I think it should also definitely apply to certain wheelchairs that can be fixed up to be used again, because we might be in a position to help somebody that might need a wheelchair in case of an emergency, just to get them over a little bit of hump while they're waiting for their wheelchair to be fixed, or and I think it's such a shame, because sometimes people would ring in and say, "Oh, my a member of my family passed away, and we have this brand new wheelchair, but we're not in a position to take them." And I think it's such a shame, because they could be used again, and they could go to a really good home where somebody could really be very happy, and like, and it would save people money as well. It also prevents it from going into landfill, and which is a good thing, because everybody is talking about the environment and trying to save the environment, and and it's not just that. I really feel that, like, I always say, if you can't do a good turn, then don't do a bad one. And I suppose I say that because I have a disability myself, and if we could stop, help somebody to give them a chair that has been refixed, and if it can help someone else, isn't that a good thing?
Through her lived experience, Anne shows how small routines and practical fixes can safeguard her wheelchair and keep her moving. She also reveals the other side, the anxiety of being stranded when a breakdown occurs and the barriers created by slow, costly, or hard to access repair services. Her recommendations are clear: faster emergency response, repair workshops and training so users can confidently complete basic fixes, affordable, readily available replacement parts, and greater access to mobile or local technicians. These aren't luxuries, but essential services that preserve independence and participation in community. Making repair accessible ensures wheelchair users' safety, dignity, and ability to live full lives. On behalf of the DIY Wheelchair Repair Project, we would like to thank Anne for sharing her lived experience and practical solutions. Her insights will undoubtedly help guide improvements to wheelchair repair in Ireland.